Brett Kavanaugh's nomination and the controversy around it is many things, but the one thing it's not is a race story. There's no racial angle whatsoever, and no reasonable person could disagree with that. But that has not prevented the left from using it to vilify people for their skin color. April Ryan and Bill Maher said Kavanaugh being grilled for sexual assault showcased the notion somehow of something called white privilege. Watch.
It was a sense of entitlement. This is mine.
Right.
This is mine.
Oh, well, I mean, the whole thing is such a pageant. When people ask, what does white privilege mean? You know, this is a pageant of it.
They didn't explain exactly what that means or how it works. Former Bush campaign strategist and ABC News political analyst Matthew Dowd went further than that. He published an op-ed demanding that, quote, white male Christians vacate their positions of power for other people. He's not doing that himself, but he did not notably advocate for genocide. A Georgetown professor called Christine Fair did do that. She recently tweeted this, quote, look at this chorus of entitled white men justifying a serial rapist's arrogated entitlement. All of them deserve miserable deaths while feminists laugh as they take their last gasps. Bonus, we castrate their corpses and feed them to swine. Yes. Georgetown has issued a statement defending Fair. Of course they have. Marjorie Clifton is the founder of Clifton Consulting LLC, and she joins us tonight. What do you think of that, Marjorie? Do you think it's within bounds of reasonable political discourse for a Georgetown University professor to call for genocide?
No, I don't. I don't think that's an appropriate or helpful statement.
Oh,
but
not helpful
what you're
or
seeing,
appropriate. Would you add any other superlatives to that, or just not helpful and appropriate? How about immoral and disgusting? Would that qualify?
It's not creating a dialogue, and it's not adding to an environment that addresses the real heart of where a lot of people's concerns are.
But hold on, wait. I'm sorry. I can't. Look, these aren't your remarks. I'm not holding you responsible for them. But I think a normal person would look at that and say, "Are you joking? What? Killing people? Can't we just say that this is like totally over the top and like calling for violence against people on the basis of their race? We're not for that, right? Or are we for that?"
Yes. No, I agree. It's not appropriate, and it's not how I would talk.
Well, how about disgusting? Can we do that, or is that too much?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. But I guess I just want to get to the core principles here. So I was raised to believe that you're not allowed to attack or judge people based on their skin color. We got a whole monument on the Mall reminding us of that. Are we still for that, or have we moved on to something else?
Well, what we've erupted in this debate, and why it's coming out to this white male Christian conversation that Matthew Dowd was having in his article, is that what we saw in the optics of that trial was about gender, and it really is about who we believe in a situation, which is her against him. And that was a very hard thing for a lot of people to have to reckon with, because what we do know is that 97% of companies are represented by white men and are not representative of the labor force.
Well, but hold on, wait, hold on. Let's start at first principles here. Are we allowed to judge people on the basis of their skin color, to attack or reward them? Of course not. But you are, though. That's what you're saying.
No,
you're saying,
I'm not.
Yes, you are. You just said that it's bad that companies have too many white people in them.
No.
And I think if you were looking at this from the perspective that Martin Luther King told us to look at the world through, you would say that that's wrong, right? Or would you not?
Well, what I'm going to tell you is that the workforce was largely built by white Christian men, and that's not a bad thing. It's just the reality. And when we look at issues of fairness, like we look at issues of fairness in this case, in this trial, was about who is being represented and how are we hearing it, how are we understanding it. And businesses are seeing this, that when
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. You can't keep going without explaining, because I'm not following. I'm not tracking, and I'm not just playing games. I don't get it. Why? Yeah. So the race of the people sitting in the Senate matters because why?
The gender, I would say, even more in this case, because it was a white man and a white woman.
I think there are differences between genders that are real and biological and are verifiable. They're reflected in DNA. We don't believe that about race, though, do we? Do we think that certain races have more wisdom or more honesty than others?
No, of course not.
Okay, well, of course not. Then why is the race relevant at all?
Well, I think it's creating a larger conversation about diversity and who's in leadership.
It's not creating a conversation. It's causing people to attack others on the basis of race, and liberals are endorsing it, including you. And I'm wondering, like, what changed? What have I missed?
I did not endorse that, but what I would say is that it is erupting a lot of unhelpful conversations that are related, but not about this particular trial.
Would it be fair to say to someone who attacks white men, you're not allowed to attack people on the basis of their skin color ever, period? And if you don't like attacks on other races, don't attack a race. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you would say that to
Absolutely.
Bill Maher and April Ryan and all these other dumb people who are going on with these racist attacks. It's okay to call them out?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a conversation that way. But what I would say is that when I'm talking about representation, is that companies even see this in terms of productivity. When they increase diversity in their leadership by 10%, they see a 1% increase in earnings. That's the productivity and the reality.
No, that's not actually a real statistic. It's a made-up statistic, and it's much more complicated than that. I wish we had time. You can come back to throw that statistic at me.
Yeah,
I don't even know what diversity means, but whatever. Thank you.
It means non-white men. And that's what's hard.
Okay.
Well, let me be clear. I was raised by a white Christian man, and he very much understands and sees issues from a different way, like you, Tucker, who is a father of many daughters. And as we go into the workforce,
well, I'm just amazed that we're all racist now. I thought we weren't, but I guess we are.
No, we are.
Me calling anyone racist. Well, we're attacking people on their race, so we're racist.
What we are is what we are human beings.
We can call whatever we want. We're all George Wallace. Okay, well, I'm out of time, unfortunately. It's a sickening conversation, but I appreciate your taking part. Arizona prosecutor Rachel Mitchell has prepared a memo for Senate Republicans expressing her beliefs about Christine Ford's allegations after last week's hearings. In that memo, she says Ford's case is even weaker than he said, she said, and that no reasonable prosecutor would press charges. Lisa Booth is a senior fellow at Independent Women's Voice, and she's followed this closely.
Hey, Tucker.
Lisa, tell me about her conclusions.
Well, her conclusions, as you stated, I mean, basically she goes through all these various inconsistencies that we've seen with Christine Ford's story. But the problem is she's basically remained unquestioned by the media and the left. And that's dangerous because if you're bringing life-altering and life-ruining accusations against someone, your story should be questioned. You go through the inconsistencies. One, every witness that Christine Ford has named has denied the event in question. You go back and looking at the fact she's given different periods of time. She texted the Washington Post mid-1980s, and then she comes to the conclusion in the Washington Post article, it was the summer of 1982. She's given different stories about how many people were there. In her polygraph letter alone, she has two different versions. Originally 4 people crossed off, and then it's 4 boys, 2 girls. And then even if you want to give her the benefit of the doubt of, was it 36 years ago? Maybe her memory's just not straight. Then you go to the recent problems. She said she doesn't remember how the Washington Post got her therapist notes, yet the Washington Post says that she provided them to her. She can't remember when she had the polygraph test. There's this complete farce from her and her attorneys about being afraid to fly. Then it turns out she's flying to Hawaii, Costa Rica, French Polynesia. So we have seen all these inconsistencies, not just with long-term memory, but also with recent. However, nobody's called her on it. And I think the reason being is everybody is so afraid of the Me Too movement, so afraid of these bullies on the left that they're afraid to call a spade a spade. And she's not credible. Her story doesn't add up. And Rachel Mitchell, this memo, I think, just completely lays all the facts bare.
You've been great on this from the very beginning. And thank you for your bravery. The whole country's afraid. This was not the country we were promised. We were terrified to say what you think or to be reasonable. And I hope this ends soon.
I have 3 brothers and a dad.
Yeah.
And so I think about that, and I think it's important.
It's bad for all of us, men and women. Lisa, thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.